What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Talk to Me. As always, I'm Joshua Toomey, and joined with me once again is the head editor over at Metal Injection, Greg Kennelty. Greg, how are we doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. A little tired, but trucking through on a Tuesday. Let's go.
Yeah, man, you definitely should be tired right now. You've just got back from Sweden, so let's dive into
Yeah.
that first, man. What took you to Sweden, and tell me all about it.
Yeah, so in 2022, I had gone out there for a festival called Viva Sounds, which is like a smaller festival at a bunch of different little bars and venues across Gothenburg, kind of near like the Majorna neighborhood. And it was really cool. I got to talk on a panel in 2022. I saw some great bands, and they invited me back this year. I got to moderate a panel. I got to see even more great bands. So it was a really good time. Really really far away to travel, but every time you go, you meet some more people, you make more friends, and before you know it, you have this whole group of people that live in the area or live in adjacent countries and stuff like that, and go to these things, and they're all really just truly just wonderful, great people to hang out with. So it was a great time. My only complaint is I was only there for 4 days, so 7+ hours there and 8+ hours back, and a lot of sleeping on planes, but
Hey,
it was good. It
sounds
was
good
worth it.
too.
It was worth every minute.
So what panel did you moderate?
So I got to moderate. Yeah, I got to moderate a panel called "Where I'm From," which is kind of actually like how people got into the music industry and how they fell in love with music, and going through the different jobs and how they got to where they are now, what they do now, where they want to be, things like that. It was really interesting because I had Bart from the Netherlands, I had Linda from Indie Recordings in Norway, and then I had Chris Jagger from oh my God, Summer Breeze. He was supposed to be there. He couldn't make it. Then we were supposed to have Bart from Metal Blade. He couldn't make it, unfortunately, as well. So showed up that morning thinking, my God, I don't know who the third panelist is. I really don't know very much about this person. And Roger from Suicide Records said, hey, I got this friend, he plays in a bunch of bands. He'll come down, he'll do it. And it ended up being Per Stallberg from Division of Laura Lee and tons of other bands. And he was fantastic. I mean, everyone on the panel was incredibly interesting. The hour flew by. Everyone had tons of great things to say, and it was a really good time. It was a really, really good time.
How did they contact you to begin with? Just through Metal Injection, or is this something just a friendship you've made over the years? What was that from?
So 22, when I had first gone out there, they contacted Metal Injection trying to see if anyone was going to be around, and Frank wasn't around, and so he just said, "Well, why don't you go?" And yeah, that had been the first time actually that I had gone to Europe. So just saying like, "Hell yeah, man, that's gonna be great. Let's do it. That's gonna be awesome." And then like as it starts to creep up on you, thinking like, "Oh shit, like I'm actually nervous." Like, like, oh no, like I don't know anyone out there. I've never
Right.
been to this place before. I literally have no idea what is about to happen here. And so I went out, showed up, and yeah, Roger Anderson from Suicide Records hit me up, just said, hey, why don't we grab a beer? We'll shoot the shit, and whatever. Like, just welcome to Gothenburg. I said, all
Yeah.
right, great. So we went out, and one beer turned into fucking like six or something. And we met a bunch of the people that he knows. Esben from Monolord swung by, and we became really good friends. And again, it goes from not knowing anyone and being really really nervous to the end of the first night thinking like, oh, I can do this. I can just come here, make friends, hang out, and it's a really nice time. So yeah, I guess the moral of the story is don't be afraid to say yes to stuff because you never know what's going to happen. And some things might suck, but a lot of things will rule. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. I actually interviewed Dave Ellefson a long time ago, and that was like his motto was like always just say yes or something. So it's like, you want to do this? Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's why he's got
yeah,
coffee and all the other nonsense he has. And so I've actually taken that kind of moniker to heart too over the years. And I got reached out to, obviously not as cool as flying to Sweden, but I did a pop con here in Louisville. They just reached out
oh
and said, hey, do you want to do a live podcast? And I was like, yeah. And then
sure,
it's just kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna talk to? Like, like, am I gonna just
right,
stick out like a sore thumb? And but I got another local podcaster here, and we did since it's like pop culture related, we just did kind of like a snake draft of snake draft by the decades of movie soundtracks. So 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and then just
Oh,
talked to
damn.
it. It was fun. Turned out to be fun, and just had a little
Yeah,
fun
of
time.
course.
But it was funny. The crowd was like my wife. I took my kids because they got to see all the anime and all the people dressed up, and it was
Yeah,
like
of
a
course.
woman dressed up as Hulk Hogan, and just like random
Hell yeah.
cosplayers, and it was a fun time, man. But obviously not as fun as going to Sweden for some festival love. But yeah, it's fun to say yes, but yes, it does get nerve wracking the closer the actual
Yes.
event comes.
That reverse bell curve of this is gonna rule. Oh my god, what the hell did I do? And like, oh, this is actually fun and I like this. But yeah, like just that certainly like that bottoming out of just like, oh shit, like I'm gonna go, I'm gonna be terrible. I'm gonna be so bad, I'm gonna have to get on a plane, I'm gonna have to come home. Everyone's gonna hate this. Yeah, like and then you go and you have a great time. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, too, just getting asked to do things and the yes followed by the what if I screw this up though? Like, what if I really bomb this? Like,
Yeah.
and the same thing for you playing in bands. I mean, I'm sure it's been the same thing of just the yes and then the oh god.
Yeah, honestly, well, actually, bands have always seemed to be more natural. It's more
Yeah.
the like even doing interviews at Louder Than Life or whatnot, and like you schedule, I scheduled like what 22 a couple of years ago, and I'm like, okay, and then it got down to crunch time where I actually had to do those 22 interviews, and then you're like, oh God, please make sure the cameras are rolling, make sure the mics are running. It's definitely a nerve wracking experience trying to get through an event like that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. But it mostly turns out all right. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of festivals, man, let's talk about Signy World canceling on everybody, man. And how much have you guys over at Metal Injection kind of dove into that, or how much have you dove into it? Kind of the backstory and why of everything.
So I'm really interested to see what actually comes out about this because my timeline for it was I had heard a rumor, I think 2 or 3 weeks prior, that it was getting canceled. And they're like, hey, like this is gonna be canceled soon. And it's like, okay, great. Like I'll keep an eye out. So checking the Instagram, nothing. Okay, whatever. So I kept going to like the Sick New World Reddit and all that just to see like is anyone talking about this? And the answer is largely no. And then somebody had pointed out that Melvins and Napalm Death had announced that North American tour for
Mhm.
2025, and Signy World was on there. And then all of a sudden, the date got replaced with Las Vegas TBD, and it was like, okay, weird. So that kind of tipped me off, like, something's probably up there. And it's interesting that they just kind of just chalked it up to unforeseen circumstances, but that also seems to be, the status quo of just everybody canceling anything. It's just always unforeseen circumstances. Albert from Decibel had a great joke online where he was saying that he's just going to start up a festival called Unforeseen Circumstances. But it, I think the problem, just in my non-professional festival opinion, is that you had Sick New World 2023, and that was what System of a Down, Deftones. Like it was extremely new heavy. Like nobody had really been
Yeah.
doing that on that, especially on that scale. So everybody lost their shit. It was great. 24 came around. Okay, good. You had System of a Down again. They don't really play very often. You had Alice in Chains. That was the only Alice in Chains show of 24, I believe. You had Danny Elfman. Like you had a pretty wild lineup. Like it was still that nostalgia thing. Like it was
Yeah.
a little more diverse than new metal, but I would say it's stuck to that core tenet of kind of a throwback thing. Cool, great, wonderful. Why the hell did you pick Metallica and Linkin Park? They're headlining every festival in 2025.
Yeah.
Metallica is going to be everywhere. They are oversaturated to the extreme. And I'm not saying this is true because I don't know if it's true, but from what I've been seeing, that each band got paid $5 million each. Like just those two alone. Like
Right.
that's a hard number to recoup. Just
Yeah.
$10 million up top. Like, plus the other bands. Like it just seemed like a weird gamble to take that everyone will come see Metallica and Linkin Park when you could see Metallica on tour. You could see Linkin Park at every friggin' festival, and they have that world tour rolling. Those kind of like to me, like Sick New World was gonna be this thing where it's like, we got System of a Down, we got like a Spine Shank reunion, we got, like something like that. Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
something that is very like of that era. and like something special. And they got the Acid Bath reunion, and that's cool. And they got the Tomahawk thing, and that was cool. But I don't know. It felt like it got too close to what everybody else does, and nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, the Sick New World, obviously, when it first came out, everybody made the joke of like, why didn't you spell new like NU? And then you could
Yeah,
have just totally been a new metal festival, but it was definitely, had its new metal tinge, but it also had like the goth industrial side too. It was kind of almost like a half and half festival. And then I think this year, if they would have just had Linkin Park as the headliner, like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit, or Linkin Park and
yep,
even System of Down again, or Deftones, like any of those two bands could have, headlined the entire thing, and it still would have kind of been in the realm of what it kind of was to begin with. And you could even do, you still have your reunions under there with the Tomahawks and the Acid Baths. And, like you said, find Spine Shank, say, hey guys, figure it out and get back together for this
right.
one or something. Because I mean, that
One
was the one thing
show.
you would, yeah, you would look at the lineups, and all through the day you're seeing Soulfly, Coal Chamber, just all these just classic new metal bands with the classic goth industrial bands. And I think throwing Metallica on it kind of threw everybody off. As much as I love Metallica, it just kind of like it did throw that whole festival for a loop. And then you throw on top of it, you got to recoup $10 million. And then
Yeah,
I saw somebody break down the tickets for that, and the first year was a couple $100 for a ticket, which is still crazy, but it's still a festival, and it's
right.
all day, and it's Las Vegas and a thing like that. But I think this year's tickets were upwards of like $400 for
Yeah,
a single day festival.
that was just for general
And
admission too.
right, yeah, and then you could get the air conditioned cabana for 1,500 or something. But it's just at some point, Signal World kind of turned into just Louder Than Life or Rockville or
Yep.
Incarceration, all that stuff. Just kind of, but then at those festivals, you get a few days worth of music for almost the same price. The price point was a bit off, I think.
Yeah, that $400 for a ticket's crazy because I mean that's also it's not just $400, right? It's like I gotta get a
Yeah.
hotel room, I gotta fly there, I gotta get to and from the airport, I gotta eat at some point. It's Las Vegas, so it's expensive as hell. Like this is gonna turn into like a $2,000 weekend, easy.
Yeah.
And yeah, for one day. So that also assumes that I'm basically flying in on I don't know if it was a Saturday or what, but you're flying in on Friday night, you're going Saturday, you're leaving Sunday, and you spent all that money. And yeah, I mean, how many bands are you gonna be able to see? Because yeah, I mean, I don't know how many bands it was, but it was a stupid amount. Yeah, like Welcome to Rockville is like, all right, cool. It's 3 days, it's 4 days, whatever. You can see a lot of the bands that you want to see. Like you can kind of plot out where you're gonna be and all that stuff. And for something like that, they got better stuff. I mean, you know, it, again, Signal World had some cool picks, but by and large, I mean, so do all the other festivals. Like they have like the Power Trips of the world. They have the
Yeah.
Dry Kill Logic reunions of the world. They have Chimera starting to come back. Like, they have a lot of these things, and it's like on top of all the bands that you would want to see. And I don't know, it just it felt like such a weird flub because you had the branding, you had the market recognition 2 years out, which is incredible. People knew Sick New World right off the bat because that first
Mhm.
one came out of nowhere and it was completely insane. And you just dropped the ball. And I don't really
Yeah.
get, like you said, like you get like Linkin Park, fine, okay, that leans hard into the late 90s, early 2000s thing, but then like get a Limp Bizkit, get a Slipknot, get a Korn, get a
Mhm.
Deftones, get, Max Cavalera playing fucking Roots or something, as like one of
Yeah.
like the lower tier, like there's so many things you could have done. And instead, just like we got Metallica, and it's like, oh my God, they've been on tour for what, 2 years
Ever.
now, 3 years now? How many times are people going to go see Metallica? I mean, I get it, but also, really, really, come on. It felt like a really, really strange choice. But apparently, John Dahlman from System of a Down was talking about that he wants to see them come back in 26 and do well and all that stuff. And he's like, we'll play, Sick New World if you guys come back. And I don't know, maybe this is a good learning experience for them. Like maybe they realize like, all right, our branding is, that period of time, that specific set of music. There's nothing wrong with that. It works. It's cool. People like it. Just do it,
Mhm.
like why not? Like there's nothing wrong with just being the festival that is that specific thing. That's
What
great.
if what if Metallica played it, but they just did Saint Anger from start to finish
That
because
probably
of that time period?
honestly, dude, I think that might have sold. Like, because I think it's really interesting to talk about Saint Anger now because like the opinion has like kind of shifted from like it doesn't suck. It's just the production's bad. So like it that
I've
would have been really cool.
I've always said Saint Anger has a lot of really cool riffs, but no good songs. Like it's
Yup.
like it's just a mishmash of like awesome riffs that don't really go together. But yeah, I think yeah, if they would have played it off like we're playing Sick New World, so we're gonna play something from like that kind of era.
It would have been
Not
cool.
necessarily load reload, but it definitely have to be like and it would be such a special show because they're never gonna do that. So if they
Right.
came out and said, "All right, we got Metallica doing a Saint Anger set with Linkin Park," and Metallica would have had to conform to the festival, like kind of go to the festival's demographic rather than like, here's Metallica, we're gonna play Jump in the Fire and Whiplash. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Right.
actually do something kind of cool and unique for that fest.
I mean that probably would have done all right. Because yeah, like when I don't think they've ever done that. And like that would have been cool and yeah, exactly. Like very of that time. But I don't know. I really just did not get that billing. Like that was just such an odd choice. So hopefully they can come back and do something decent. But yeah, just lean into it. And yeah, like dude, like get Metallica playing Saint Anger, get Linkin Park just like doing stuff in the first two albums or whatever. Like just stuff like that, man. Because
Yeah.
again, like if that's gonna be your branding, that's fine. But then lean into that. Be that.
Yeah, and the we can kind of segue into talk a little bit about Bobby on this one because with Bobby Burns kind of announcing, with his liver failure and all that stuff, which is, you know, it was kind of awesome
Yeah.
to kind of see all the metal sites pick it up and it's, kind words and 99% of the comments were actually pretty decent. I was actually really surprised because, people in the comment sections are most of the time kind of shitty. But
Yep.
it was nice to see everybody like, oh man, Primer slaps and his Soulfly records are cool and everybody was very very nice to this
Right.
situation. There were a lot of people like, uh, well, he did this to himself. I did love in his statement that he posted that he's like, I did this to myself and I loved every minute of it or something like that, like kind of paraphrasing. But I was like, that's him though. Like that statement or post was 1,000,000% him, and that's kind of how he has always been. Um, but that being said, it was like when those Sick New Worlds fests started popping up, and even this year with the Dry Kill Logic being on a main stage at a festival
Yeah.
and stuff
That
like
was
that, I'm
wild.
like, dude, why are we not back together doing something, man? This is crazy.
So would you consider doing something Primer 55 adjacent then, or put you on the
No, I
spot for
think
this?
yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't. I mean, I wasn't like an original member or anything like that of that band. I mean,
Yeah.
it's someone made a joke one day that uh he goes, I've never seen like the third bass player of a band become so synonymous with the band after so many years. And I'm like, hey, what's what I've done. I've kind of weaseled my way into being a core member of a band I didn't start or play on any albums for.
Right.
But but yeah, no, I would he actually said something to me about, hey, he's like, when I do pass, I don't want you, I want the band to die with me kind of thing. And I
That's
jokingly
cool
said,
though.
I was like, nah, man, Toomey's Primer 55 experience is coming out the next day.
Yeah.
He's like, you dick.
Fucking the second after just Primer 55 AD. And you're like,
Yeah,
motherfucker. All
yeah.
right.
Primer
Well, that was like
AD.
the Mushroom Head thing.
Yeah.
Because that was interesting. That was kind of an interesting one to follow. What was it? Jeffrey Nothing came
Yeah.
out and was like, "Oh, I'm doing like my own Mushroom Head adjacent thing," and then kind of walked that back and was like, "Oh well, it's not like mushroom head, like it's just kind of adjacent to that, like that sort of sound, which is cool. I think that's kind of an interesting way to approach it. It's just like this is a continuation of the sound, but not, yeah, you're not going to get the Primer 5580 or the nothing's mushroom head or whatever, because like that shit is like, all right, like just stop now. Like,
Yeah. I think you and I talked about that too. With even like a band like Saliva, you've got Josie Scott, the voice of Saliva out there, and
yeah,
then you've got Saliva out there, has no original members in the band, and it's just like that whole marketplace of just the name on the marquee is worth so much more than
oh yeah,
Jeffrey Nothing's Mushroom Head is going to be worth more than
yep,
whatever band, whatever he calls his band. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh
and
dude, yeah,
that because over the years, I mean, he's tried bands and even like a Killer's Confession, that's still like, it's Mushroom Head adjacent, but it's still, Mushroom Head's going to get the marquee, even
every
though
time.
it's, basically just Skinny left in the band.
Yeah, and like we talked about last time, it's like, listen, if it makes you happy, go. These guys deserve to make the money, blah blah blah, all that
Right.
stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll still listen to it. I'll still check it out. But yeah, but who knows? Maybe they'll get to play Sig New World 2026 if as long as I don't book like we spent $20 million on Pantera. And you're like, oh my god, stop! Did you not learn the first time? Cut it out.
Pantera playing
Yeah,
Reinventing the Steel in its entirety.
yeah, yeah. First of all, that would be cool.
That
It's
would be
like
cool.
I just $10 million for two bands. If that's true. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen the reports say that. I tend to believe it, but who knows? But still, even if it's in the ballpark, like $10 million for two bands that's tough. That's really tough because going back to that, the report is basically saying like the amount that they spent, they allegedly backed themselves into a corner where it was like they basically had to sell this thing out. And I always kind of look at that and I think, why would you do that to yourself? Why not cut like maybe two or three bands? This way, like, listen, if we sell 75% of tickets, like, we're okay. Everything else is gravy. Like, to put yourself on the spot of like, unless this sells 95%, we're toast. That's so difficult. That's so much pressure. Like, why? And like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it too conservatively, but it feels very like really back yourself into a corner on this one. And like, it's going to be real tough to get out of it. And they didn't. They didn't get out of
I
it.
always wonder about that, about how top loaded some of these fests are, if they're paying the Slipknots and the Metallicas and the Panteras and whatnot, and then the bands that are early in the day on the stages in the back, are they
Right.
getting paid at all? I
I
think a
hope
lot of
so.
these bands, I you would think so, but I mean,
I
also I
hope
think,
so.
but at the same time, how much is the name on the marquee, or, the name on the poster, and being able to play, and maybe playing for the whole, think of the exposure, you got to think about all that stuff too. It's like, I wonder how much they're they're kind of throwing that on some of those younger bands on the side stages.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that like, I don't know. You should be. I mean, we've probably talked about this, but you should be paid for your art. You should be paid for your
Yeah, yeah.
performance and your time because it's still, so like bands out there. I mean, listen, like I know exposure's tough and all that stuff, but like don't play for free if you don't have to, and like maybe just don't play for free at all. Like you deserve to make money off what you do. Like you spent time, practice time getting there, gas, food, all that stuff. Like your gear, like it's don't accept the "Ooh, pay you an exposure." Like, man, shut up. Like, no, I'm good. What's for all
Yeah.
25 people that show up to the side stage at 9:45 in the morning? Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny, you see some of those early Ozfest time slots, and you're like, "Man, did we really get up for, like, 10 AM Hatebreed?"
Yeah, right. Like, no, probably not. You know,
Did those, like,
like,
9:20 Trivium.
oh, dude, yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I saw Trivium. God, I think it was like 16 or something on like one of the like
Mhm,
family values tours, but they were like way the hell down there. Like they were not, much of anybody.
mhm.
And I mean they were fucking great. But I don't know. I guess it's one of those things that like you should show up to the openers, like just for any show, because you never know what you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might see something really cool. But I saw a Dream Theater at PNC Background Center. God, when was that? 10 plus years ago. Oh yeah, probably closer to 15 now. And it was like Dream Theater and this little band called Into Eternity, and it was like, oh cool, like I don't know what that is. And we went and we saw them, and like that was like holy shit, like I still listen to that band all the time. They were so good live. And yeah, that's Stu Block, who went to sing for Iced Earth for a little while until that band imploded. But no, they were great. So show up for the openers, go to openers. I mean, also like you paid for the ticket, so you might as well just get the most out of it too. Like they're not gonna be like, oh, you're just gonna see the headliners. All right, it's half price. Like you paid for this whole ticket, just go see all the bands. Worst case, all of it sucks. Still got to hang out with your friends and have a beer. Who cares?
Yeah, that happened. That happened recently when we went to. I feel like it was maybe the Ghost Inside and Paleface Swiss opened, and I didn't know anything about them until I saw them,
Yeah.
and I was just like, "Oh my god, like this band is fucking amazing."
Yeah, they're
yeah,
killer. That's such a fun moment of just like, oh, I don't know what this is, but I think I love this. Like, hold on, this actually might rule big time. You know?
yeah. Um, Another thing I kind of wanted to bring up too was it's a little bit older, but it's like not too old, I guess, a couple weeks maybe. But Adam Warren quits Oceano and then plots out the band's final shows. And it kind of stems from um they were what is announced as part of the US. This was posted by Metal Injection by a guy named Greg Kennelty.
Yeah, I
Um
find guy sucks.
but Adam Warren has quit the band after some serious drama online. It all started when Oceano was announced as part of the upcoming US tour with Attila, Dealer, and Nathan James. Fans took issue with the billing as some members of both Attila and Dealer have come under fire in recent years for alleged sexual misconduct. After some extensive back and forth online between Warren and displeased fans, Warren announced he's quitting Oceano to focus on his solo project, Adam on Earth. And man, there is, I think about this every day since this has come up and how relatable this is, because there's been so many times where I've posted a podcast, even when I posted the last episode you and I did, and it's just like
Yeah.
I see the wrong comment and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I quit. Like I'm so in the camp with him, just some online criticism, and he's like, you know what? It's done. The whole band's over. Just fuck it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, he kind of alluded to, it seemed there was one sentence in one of the statements, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of like, there's a reason that we haven't put out a record in 7 years. Like he kind of seemed like he was like over it anyway.
Yeah.
Just based on what I was reading, like it almost seemed like this was kind of like the final straw for him, and like just whatever. But I mean, I don't know. The internet sucks. Like I get it. Like you do one tour that people don't like, and I understand where people are coming from too. Like I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because it's allegations, and I don't know any of these people, so I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, he did it, he didn't do it. Like I can see why people would be like, hey man, like you seem like a good person. Why are you going out with people that have been accused of things? Like, but I can also see why he would turn around and be like, you know what? I just don't want to do this. Like, I don't care. Fuck it. Like, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Oceano was a cool band. Their latest record that came out this year was pretty good. It sucks to see them go, but I mean, it just kind of is what it is. You got to respect the guy's decision. It was funny because I called them a classic deathcore band at one point, and one guy was like, "What classic deathcore band? When were they classic?" I'm like, "They're older. You forget that it's nearly 2025 now. Like time has moved on, dude. Like it's not. Yeah, it's like they've been around for 5 years." But yeah, no, it's a shame to see them go. I mean, on the flip side, Attila is Attila. They're gonna do what they do in all their edginess, and they're never gonna go away anyway. So, like, as far as they're concerned, Oceano drops off. I haven't looked, but I'm sure somebody else is already on the tour or whatever. Like, you know, they are a band who knows very much who they are as people, it seems, and the fans are into it, I guess. So
Yeah, I like this one line from the statement. Y'all are vicious and clearly seek chaos without care of who it affects. Yeah, that
I
was
mean
part of the
that's just
statement, man. That's the internet for you right there.
that's just straight up the internet.
So I just had Jesse Leach on talking about the new Killswitch Engage album that comes out in February, talking about the upcoming tour and the new single that's out. Um, and he's obviously doing the rounds promoting the new Killswitch Engage album. And actually on my list, I had like a question on there. I was like, if it kind of, if I could slide it in, I would ask him because, and I didn't, but I was going to ask him if he was concerned with Adam D working with Howard Jones in a side band, because
Mhm.
that's kind of how Jesse got back into Killswitch. Was Adam and Jesse were working together, and then the thing with Howard kind of came out, and then Jesse got back into Killswitch after the audition process, stuff like that. So I wonder if he thinks like, oh shit, Adam's working with Howard on this side band, and it might be like a weird cycle of Howard kind of coming back into the band somehow.
My guess would be no. I mean, they seem
Yeah,
like they seem very happy with this new record and all that, and that's awesome. I do think it's interesting that there's this Howard side band called, what is it? Burn Eternal, Burn something.
yeah,
It
I
just
think it's
came out
Burn
today, and I can't
Eternal.
remember the name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that was kind of part of
but
the other part of for bringing it up, because during they're promoting the new Killswitch Engage album, and then now all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, and our Burn Eternal album is also ready to come out too. It
that's
seems like a
yeah,
lot all at once.
that's what I thought was kind of interesting. Is like, unless the plan is to like get this thing mixed, mastered, artwork, marketing plan, the whole nine, and just let it sit and like wait,
Mhm.
like, all right, we'll do the Kill Switch tour, all that stuff, and maybe it comes out in 2026. I mean, who knows? But it was interesting that like the Kill Switch record got announced 2 weeks ago, something like that. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's like, hey, by the way, quick update, me and Adam's a new record is done, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, I'm excited. I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah,
Going to listen to the new
me
Kill
too.
Switch as well. But, like, timing's kind of weird. I mean, well, not nobody had worse timing than the Slayer reunion when Kerry King is like, I have a
Oh,
solo album
right.
coming out. They're like,
Yeah.
Slayer reunion. It was like, oh shit. All right, cool. I guess they're doing that now. Like, geez. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I hope that I just hope there's just two good bands out there. I hope there's
Yeah.
Adam and Howard doing their thing and Killswitch doing their thing, and everybody could just coexist. But yeah, it did seem weird that all of a sudden, like after what 5-6 years of there being no Killswitch record, this other thing just pops up at the same time. Like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe it's nothing, but just the timing is just kind of strange.
Right. Yeah, Atonement was 2019. I talked to Jesse about I do hate that Atonement kind of got lost to COVID, because it is a great
Yeah.
record.
Oh,
Um,
it's such a good record.
yeah, it's a bunch of great songs on that one, and I mean, the new album's great too. Like I think everybody, if you're a Killswitch fan, I think you're gonna love it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's definitely I don't know. I just found it strange that Adam D and Howard Jones, like during Jesse's press tour, basically bombarding it with talking about the new album or the new band name.
Well, it is interesting too because like you have to know that like that era of Killswitch Engage is extremely popular. I mean, not to say that the Jesse stuff isn't, because it very much is, obviously, but it is kind of crazy that yeah, like the Howard records are really really popular. People really like that. So like the prospect of Adam and Howard working in together is not going to be some small time peanut news. I mean, that was like the one of the two top stories today on Metal Injection, right alongside the Meshuggah Cannibal Corpse and Carcass tour. And so it's like, when you announce anything of just like, hey, the record's mixed, here's the band name, it's mastered, whatever, that's going to pop off. So yeah, like the timing was again interesting. Maybe not intentional. Maybe it was purely coincidental. Maybe just just didn't think of it. They came out of lunch and he wanted to post that real quick. Who knows? It could be a whole lot of nothing. But yeah, it was kind of odd.
Yeah, and Howard's not a big internet guy too, so is it him just like running to Instagram to post something doesn't seem to be something that he would do on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit, man. The knocked loose jumping up on Jimmy Kimmel. Obviously, hometown boys here. They've got seeing them kind of jump up on Jimmy Kimmel. Obviously bringing out Poppy and just the backlash that the Kimmel fan kind of came back with and wanting a apology and all that nonsense for bringing Knock Loose to television and uh just everything around it, man, was wild to me.
It was crazy. I mean, good for them. I mean, obviously, I think I said this in the article that I wrote, but it's not Gojira at the Olympics, but it's still knocked loose on national television in front of like
Yeah.
1.7 million, 2 million people. I mean, that's still a really, really big deal. And like, I'm thrilled for them. I'm thrilled for the genre, honestly, because like that puts it in front of a lot of different people's faces. And it's been kind of an interesting year for that, where again, you had Gojira at the Olympics, you had Knocked Loose playing Jimmy Kimmel, you had
Mhm.
what was it, Spirit Box on the Megan the Stallion record too. I
Yeah.
mean, these are all things that are cool, man. Like I don't really understand the metal fans who don't appreciate that and kind of get annoyed by that, because it's like, dude, when these things happen, it brings more fans in. Those fans buy records, those fans go to shows, they buy the t-shirts, whatever it is. They're supporting these bands. They're helping a Knocked Loose, they're helping a Spirit Box, they're helping maybe even somebody smaller. Like, I mean, Spirit Box, they're touring with Dying Wish and Jail and Loathe, and great. So maybe they'll get new fans too. And these bands get to exist because the music industry is a fucking nightmare. Streaming services don't pay shit. Touring is hard, everything's expensive. So to bring new fans in via a Jimmy Kimmel Live or the Olympics or a Megan the Stallion record, cool, great, love it. I think it's good for the genre, and I think everyone should be happy for it, frankly.
Yeah, I think you'll get that. There's the new generation of kids that maybe not. Not the Beatles on Ed Sullivan kind of deal, but you're gonna have a kid
Right.
that was like, I stayed up late one night watching Jimmy Kimmel and I saw it knock loose and it made me want to buy a guitar, or made me want to go to my Spotify and check out this whole genre. And I was like, I think you're going to get a lot of that. In a few years, you're going to get a lot of bands that were like, oh yeah, we formed after our guitar player saw knocked loose on Jimmy Kimmel and made us want to buy guitars and stuff like that. I think you'll get a lot of that. Um, and it definitely
Which
opens
is
up a whole new world of people to this hardcore world.
which is so funny too, that people like hate on shit like that. Like, oh, they've gone mainstream. It's like, dude, do you not remember how much, like, how many of us got into metal because of the Tony Hawk soundtracks, or like the soundtracks
Right.
for like Weed of the Damned or The Crow or things like that? Like, these were all mainstream things. This wasn't some
Mhm.
underground video game. Like, it's fucking Tony Hawk, man. Like, everybody had it. So, it's stuff like that it's like, yes,
Well, well,
metal in the mainstream is a good thing because it gets younger kids into it. And like, I don't understand where the hate comes from.
yeah, and if you want to look at another way, man, it's just like of all bands to go to the mainstream, Knocked Loose would probably be like one that I'm like, why, that's not
Oh,
they didn't
oh
change their
shit.
sound, they didn't smooth out the vocals, they did, they're just being
Oh,
themselves and getting the mainstream attention, which is pretty amazing. And then how many bands, that you cover at Metal Injection, how many bands that I've interviewed that, oh man, my first rock record was Linkin Park, or I loved watching Corn on TRL and all that stuff. And I'm talking about dudes from bands like Knock Loose and dudes from
right.
hardcore metal bands that you would never associate with this stuff, and like huge Disturbed fans. You're like, what? Like, what's going on? But yeah, you get
Ooh, yeah,
uh you get those dudes out there now. So I mean, this is good for the not, this is good for the now, and this is good for the next generation of metal kind of coming up.
absolutely. I think it's great. I love it. I hope it keeps happening.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely fun times. But yeah, I mean, Locknose, they're nominated for a Grammy. They're on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
good
wild.
time to be in Knocked Loose.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
no.
and then even I was, this is one thing I wanted to bring up too. I mean, with Breaking Benjamin and Stain announcing their tour together with Wage War opening, arenas for them. That's amazing too for Wage War and Lakeview, kind of
Oh yeah.
getting out there and getting that exposure to those fans too.
I mean, we need things like that to keep happening, like for every, and I'm not shitting on the tour at all because I'm gonna go to it because I'm a huge fan of all three bands, but for every Meshuggah and Cannibal Corpse and Carcass tour where like insanely good, I'm very excited for that. But how many people don't know about those three bands in the genre, right? Like probably not
Right.
many. But like when you get I don't know how true this is. By the time this podcast comes out, this actually should probably be announced. But I believe there's a Whitechapel tour coming up with 200 Stab Wounds and a bunch of other guys. And it's like, okay, cool, because Whitechapel is very big. 200 Stab Wounds is getting there. So like to push these smaller bands over the edge and to give them the audience is vital. I mean, it's critical, you need that, because if not, if you just keep having the same bands, you keep having the same big bands doing this and that and this and that, eventually when they retire or break up or something, there's just going to be a vacuum of power, and that's not good. That's not what you want. Like you want, the Wage Wars of the world that Breaking Benjamin fans and Stain fans now know, and they're fans of them, and then they can kind of tour those markets and continue to do well, and good on them,
Yeah, I'm looking at the dates for the Meshuggah Cannibal Corpse Carcass tour. It's good sized theaters, nothing too crazy. It's not arenas or anything like that. Of all the tours being announced recently, the one that blew me away was Deftones doing arenas. I was like, really? Like Deftones? Last time I saw them, it was like a 9,000 seat outdoor venue. But yeah, they're and it seems like they're selling well at these arena shows. And I'm like, where are these fans coming from? Kind of out of nowhere to see Deftones in an arena.
I feel like I just woke up one day and all of a sudden, Korn and Deftones are like the two biggest new metal bands in the entire universe. Like now, though, like not back then.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, it's just like Deftones is playing arena, and you're like, really? I'm good for them, but also like, what the fuck? Like I don't know when that like popped into my consciousness, but like because obviously there was like a lead up. Like all of a sudden, like one day it's like, Korn is huge. Holy shit! When did Korn get that? Just what the hell? I mean, again, good for them, because now I think it's cool that like Deftones is a good example. Like now they have the power to pick. Like, hey, like we think Loathe is cool. We think not Super Heaven. Who's the other one they were taking out on tour? Damn it, I can't think of their name right now. Smaller band, Fleshwater. Like cool. Like now Deftone fans get to hear about Fleshwater. They are a good band. Like but they're smaller. So it's cool again that these bands now have the power to go out and to show people, these smaller bands, which I thought was incredibly fucking irritating about Slayer's farewell tour back in 2015, when it was like them, Primus, Phil Anselmo covering Pantera, and somebody else that I can't remember. Yeah.
Ministry.
And it's like, you had the perfect opportunity to pass the torch to any slightly smaller, like, get like an Exodus below that, and maybe not Exodus because Gary's already in Slayer, but like get like just like a touch smaller, like Subheader, and then like 2 or 3 like smaller thrash bands, and kind of pass the torch to them. But it's like we got Primus, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like that was I still think about that, because it was like, oh my god. But yeah, no, to see bigger bands like Deftones and Korn taking out smaller bands and kind of bringing them up there, or Stained and Breaking Benjamin, it's great. I feel the same way that I feel about Knocked Loose. You got to bring up the next generation, or else there's not going to be one, and then we're all in trouble.
Absolutely. I think that is a good way to end this one, man. So tell everybody how they can follow you at with all your wonderful daily TikToks and reels and all that good stuff.
And Instagrams and whatnot. Yeah, I am at the Greg Kennelty, spelled how you'd see it. I can't yet. There you go. There one. On the screen there. I'm on, God, what the hell am I on now? Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really use Twitter much anymore, but everything else I do. So I am there, and it's the Greg Kennelty, THE, and then spelled like it is right there.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for taking some time with me tonight, and we will talk to you soon.
Of course. Yep, I'll see you soon.